He had hits like Mony Mony, Crimson and Clover, and Crystal Blue Persuasion. 23 gold records in all. But what went on behind the scenes? I sat down with Tommy James to talk with him about his new book, Me, the Mob, and the Music. When did that start for you, the music thing?
It actually started when I was 4 years old. I started playing a ukulele. And when I was 9 years old, I got my first acoustic guitar. And I saw Elvis on the first Ed Sullivan Show. And, you know, rock and roll suddenly became a job opportunity. So yeah. I basically, all I ever wanted to do really was play rock and roll.
Tommy James started his first band when he was 12. They were so popular with kids in the area that 2 local recording labels signed them. In 1964, when Tommy was a junior in high school, he recorded a tune called Hanky Panky.
My baby does the hanky panky.
It was a big hit in about 4 square blocks and then died.
2 years later,
I got a call from Fenway Distributors in Pittsburgh that a Hanky Panky, this record I had recorded 2 years earlier, was sitting at #1.
Somebody dug it up?
Dug it up out of a record cemetery, you know, put it on the air, and it actually broke out of teen dance clubs, and they bootlegged it, sold 80,000 of them in 10 days, and we were sitting at #1. Only in America.
Wow.
Only in America.
Tommy quickly put a band together and went to New York to sell the master. The Shondells were met with enthusiasm from every record company they went to, but were turned down by them all.
And finally, Jerry Wexler at Atlantic levels with us and tells us, well, if you want to know the truth, Morris Levy from Roulette Records called up all the record companies and said, "This is my record."
Whoa.
And
with that tone,
everybody down.
that
Yes,
attitude.
yes. And so I said, you know, this is kind of scary, actually.
What made it scary was that by signing with Roulette, Tommy put himself under the thumb of the mob.
What we didn't know, and we learned incrementally, is that Roulette, in addition to being a functioning record label, and a good one, was also a front for the Genovese crime family in New York.
So they owned you and you didn't know it?
Well, they owned the record.
Yeah, well, then they owned you, buddy.
So this was real, this made life really interesting.
Wow. The summer of 1966, Hanky Panky was released and quickly went #1 worldwide. But in spite of Tommy's success, getting paid was a problem.
I describe it as trying to take a bone from a Doberman. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen.
He owed you about what, $30–40 million?
Before it ended up, our accountant calculated somewhere between $30 and $40 million that we just flat out didn't get. But if I'd have had that money right then with the lifestyle I was leading, I would have probably destroyed myself.
To cope with the pressure of coming up with the next hit while dealing with the mob, Tommy did what many musicians of that era did. Here comes the booze and the alcohol.
And the pills.
And everything else.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly and easily you start doing that stuff. And when you're that age, you have no fear of chemicals.
His lifestyle took its toll. Tommy married and divorced twice. Is there ever a time when you're sitting in a hotel room and going, I'm fooling myself?
I'll never forget one night, you talk about God meeting you where you live. And I was in a Holiday Inn, and I opened a desk drawer, and there's a Gideon Bible. And I just went, God, talk to me somewhere. And so I opened it up, and I went to Ezekiah, it was Ezekiel. And at the time, I'm a real UFO nut. I mean, I'm fascinated with UFOs. So I open up Ezekiel, and I read the greatest UFO story in history.
Ezekiel 1 and the chariot and the light and the wheels and the whole thing.
Exactly. And I was just blown away because I knew that was God talking to me. And it really changed me. God was real. Suddenly he was in the now.
What did you do with that?
Well, I stole the Bible.
Oh, God.
That's the first thing I did. Took me years before I knew that they wanted you to take the Bible. I didn't know that, so I felt very guilty about it and tucked it away in my suitcase and took it home.
3 months later, Tommy was writing a song with the TV on in the background.
Billy Graham is having a crusade at Shea Stadium. So I started watching it. He gave one of the most incredible teachings on why Jesus came. I had never heard it put that beautifully and simply before. It rang something in me. I knew I heard the truth. And I went up to the TV. I'm sure I did, retinal damage. I went about this close, put my nose on the set and my hand, and when he gave the invitation, and I got saved that night.
Tommy dedicated his heart to God, but his body was still addicted to drugs and alcohol. The band continued to crank out hits like Moni Moni and I Think We're Alone Now.
When we began producing our own product, and that really was a monumental moment.
Tommy managed to break away from roulette, but addiction still had a hold on him. In 1986, Tommy checked himself into the Betty Ford Center.
That was one of the most wonderful experiences of my life.
To dry out from the pills
everything,
and the
got
booze.
rid of everything. And I must say that when I played my first gig after being high on something for 25 years, every time I would play, it was the most liberating experience in the world. It was incredible.
When you reflect on all this, Tommy, do you see the invisible hand guiding your life?
Oh.
The events, everything is
Without a
transpired.
doubt.
But the fact is that you're sitting here right now talking to me.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. What I'm saying is that the Lord has not only directed my path, but He's been my shepherd all my life. He's been kind to me. He's been generous to me. But He's also let me know that it's Him. When I'm appearing somewhere, I get to throw little seeds out there. I'll say, at the end of Sweet Cherry Wine, which is about the blood of Jesus anyway, I always say, keep looking up, Jesus is coming.
And another one of your songs, Crystal Blue Persuasion.
That was about becoming a Christian. Yeah. People say, was that about drugs? I said, no, it was about Jesus.